What we are about to witness is no ordinary chess game. This is one of the most brilliant chess games I've ever seen in my life. It is played between Alexander Alekhine with the black pieces and Tarrasch with the white pieces. This game was played in 1922 in the Czech Republic, and Alekhine farmed Tarrasch for 5 brilliancies in one game. Without further ado, let's get into the game. Tarrasch opens with the move pawn to d4. You know Tarrasch, that great guy from the past, that guy that made knight d2 systems famous? I like knight d2 systems, no pins. We get knight to f6, knight to f3, pawn to e6. What is it going to be? Okay, is it going to be a Benoni? No. It's going to be a Blumenfeld counter gambit. Before this game, I have never seen this opening in my life. I'm a Banco player. I play the Banco religiously. And I liked this game so much that I am switching from the Banco to this Blumenfeld counter gambit. It's literally like the Benoni and the Banco went out for lunch and they just meshed well. They had a nice time. And then they had a son, and that son is this gambit. And I'm about to play this gambit because it's awesome. It's basically like an open Banco. The Banco, you give up the queenside pawns for activity. Here you do the same, but rather than blockading the pawn on the light square, right, which would make their light squared bishop bad and your dark squared bishop good. Rather than that, it's going to be an open Banco, open position. And that switches between d6 and e6. It's kind of like playing the Nidor versus playing the Khan. You switch one pawn, chess is a moving system. You switch one pawn, the whole game changes. This is a beautiful gambit. Let's talk about it. So in this position, white takes pawn on e6. Which pawn do you take back with? Well, you don't take back with the d pawn because that's an unfavorable queen trade, so you take back with the f pawn. Makes some sense. You're going to castle, have the open f file. Good stuff. White accepts the pawn on b5 and black goes d5. This is the position. So it's a very open board. You have 3 hanging pawns in the center. The light squared bishop is okay. The dark squared bishop is very good. You have a bunch of open lines, open lanes. Now in the Banco, you're looking at doing stuff like a6, but here, if they go pawn e3 as they did, it doesn't make too much sense to give up that pawn because they're just going to trade off bishops and castle, right? You do that to prevent them from castling in the Banco. So what do we do here? We go bishop to d6. Nice choice. The bishop lands on d6 when white does not respond with g3 openings, such as Catalans in the beginning. It goes on d6 when they don't have the fianchetto. It goes on e7, arguably, when they do have the fianchetto. If white did fianchetto, then you can look more at these a6 ideas. I'm just trying to familiarize everybody with the position because that's what I needed to do when I looked at this game because I was not familiar with the opening. Knight to c3 castle, okay, development. Black has given up a pawn, but with that pawn, he has an immense amount of development. He has some nice bishops, right? I would say those bishops are better than these bishops. And we get b3. All right, where do we go from here? What's the plan for development? Knight bd7 makes some sense, and queen e7. Black's like, I'm just going to get all my pieces out. You took a pawn, but I have a space advantage. I have a time advantage. I have every other non-tangible advantage in chess. Pretty tangible in this position, I would say, though. We get castles, and now where do you want the a-rook? Right? Bring all your pieces into the position before striking. I think many people would say they want it on e8. Right? E and f look pretty good, but he wanted on d8. He's like, I want it on the same file as your queen. Maybe I want to push the e pawn. Maybe I want to guard the d pawn later on. So he put his rook on d8. Makes some sense. It's a good move. Queen c2. Now, what do we do? The time is now. The time to strike is now, right? You're ahead in development. That's not going to last for too much longer when white completes development. So you strike in the center. Now you get these 3 beautiful pawns in the center. d5 is very well defended. And what should white do here? Well, when you go e5, which square do you weaken? You weaken the f5 square. So what white needs to play here is something of the sort of knight h4, trying to get to f5, a nice little fork. In which case, black would need to respond with g6. There's no sacrifices for white, right? Because the queen is on g7. But at least white is able to numb the pain that's coming down the board in the center. So he had to play knight h4. And we get rook e1. And Alekhine displays utter dominance from here on out. I'm happy. It's worth that I didn't post these last 2 days. I apologize for that. I just needed a break from chess. And actually, we're going to leave the hair down for this video because I'm getting a mop chop tomorrow. So last video, with the mane of wisdom. After this mane is chopped, it's time to go stupid. That's what we're going to go. We get pawn to e5, striking in the center, right? This knight has to retreat, and then this knight comes into the center of the board. This position, it's almost like it plays itself for black. Look at all of black's pieces. Looks like you're about to get a knight on g4. Prediction of the year. We get a knight on g4. You have open lines towards f2. Okay, white is guarding that. But you know those chess.com tag, it just looks like white is going to have a tough time. And keep in mind, these are two 2700s. But it looked like this game, it looked like it was a 3000 versus a 1200. So Tarrasch was not on his A game. Vice versa, English, Alekhine was. So we get bishop takes knight. He's like, those knights look pretty good. My bishop's not too good. I'm going to get rid of one knight. Alekhine's like, okay, well, I'm still aiming at h2. What are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to go knight on f1. They say knight on f8, no mate. I'm white. I'm going to go knight on f1. Still no mate, even though it doesn't rhyme. Alekhine brings his queen into the position. He brings it on the same file as the king. There's an immense amount of pressure, but it's hard to crack positions like this. Right? This is like top-level defense. Everything is defended. Yes, you can't move, but one wrong strike by black, the whole position can turn on its face, and black can be winning. By the way, Sicilian video will resume tomorrow, and we're going to delve into the Sicilian, closed Sicilian, opening lifetime repertoire for the rest of the week. Pawn h3, where do you put this knight? There's many ways you could put this knight. I think a lot of people would go e5, but Alekhine's like, I'm going to go h6. I think I want my knight on f5. I think I want my knight on f5. That was his logic. So he went knight h6. King h1, getting out of the way of the pin. Very sensible, very logical. Knight to f5. He didn't bring it to h6 to leave it on h6. He brought it on h6 to repurpose it on f5. We got knight h2, all right, guarding f3, guarding g4, makes a lot of sense, and pawn to d4. He's like, I want more space. I don't have enough space. I want more. Now, what should white do here? Why can't he just take? Arguably, black could just take back, but I would like to imagine he would have played the move pawn to e3, and you really just blew open the whole board, and by opening the board, look how good your light-squared bishop became. All these types of discovers mates and such. So we got bishop c1. Tarrasch is like, I'm no scrub. I'm going to take and gain a tempo on your queen. Alekhine's like, space. I don't need my light squared bishop. I just need space. And look at this position. This pawn on d3 and e5, it's literally cramping all of white's pieces. It's like none of white's pieces make sense. Okay, he gives a spite check. Alekhine steps out of the way. Prophylactics. We got bishop to b2 and knight g3 check. Brilliancy number 1. Brilliancy number 1. This guy farms brilliancies for the rest of the game. You might be like, okay, that looks like a good move, but what is the line of takes? Well, the line of takes is you take with the queen, and when this knight goes to f1, you sack the rook for the knight, and you have this battery checkmate. So that knight on g3 is a tank. It's immovable. Then we get bishop to d5. He's like, okay, now my queen guards the 5th rank. I'm going to cut off your queen. My king is going to be pretty safe. Queen, get out of here. Queen leaves. Knight e2 check. And it sucks that white can't even just sacrifice the rook for the piece, because say the knight moves, you know, you just take, you're going to get in, you're going to checkmate him. So it's not even like he can sack in exchange for activity. There's just nothing. His position is absolutely paralyzed. So we get king to h1, rook to f7. He's like, you want to take my pawn? I'm not even going to allow you to do that. Maybe I'm going to double up. Maybe I'm guarding g7. Multi-purpose rook. It's like in a King's Indian when the rook comes to the 7th. Queen a6, all right. He's like, well, you're not going to double up because then you're going to lose my bishop. He's like, okay, I don't need to. h5. h5. He's like, my position is so good, I'm going to play h5. And this is the icing on the cake. This move, it'll make sense in a few moves, so let's just wait till it makes sense. But there's no back rank issues for him ever, so that's nice. Brilliancy, again, knight g3 check. Again, it cannot be taken for the same reason. Boom, boom, bam, bam, battery checkmate. So we got king to g1, and then he takes. Chess.com calls this a brilliancy. Imagine that. Queen takes the pawn, so white's not making a queen anytime soon, and we get knight to e2 check. Again, the rook cannot... I mean, this should be illegal. This is literally bullying. Well, bullying, you know, bring back bullying, but what this guy is doing to Tarrasch is so mean. Brilliancy again. This is why he's farming brilliancies. It's like you're not getting a perpetual. It's a twofold repetition, not a threefold repetition. So we get king back to g1, d2. He's like, all right, I obviously don't want to draw. I'm going to go d2. Where's your rook going to move? Well, it has to go to f1. And here he's like, okay, I'm just going to cash out. I'm going to win the exchange, and I have a plan. Bishop to e6, backwards bishop move, aiming at the king. Again, the king has to move to h1. It's like nowadays grandmasters would resign in these positions. I love seeing it played out in the year 1922. I mean, it's been more than 100 years. This is good chess between two good players, one displaying dominance. Bishop takes h3. Another brilliancy. Is that already number 5? We got pawn takes bishop, rook to f3, and this is just clipped for white. This is just GG's. He goes knight to g3, pawn h4. Remember that pawn on h5? Well, now it's on h4, kicking out the knight that really doesn't want to move, but kind of has to. Find the only winning move in this position. I mean, this is amazing. I wish GMs played like this instead of resigning. The only winning move in this position for black is to take with the queen. You might be like, oh, I was going to go pawn takes. Well, then you lose a rook, and, you know, that's how fast a chess game can switch. But he took with the queen. He's aiming at the rook. White takes a pawn. Maybe it's a little complicated, arguably not. After rook takes h3, Tarrasch is like, I've had enough. I resign. Why did he resign? Well, if king g2, queen f3, king g1, rook h1 is mate. And if vice versa, king to g1, I think bishop h2 is a nice way to end it, right? You're going to pick up a queen. You're going to checkmate him shortly. Have you seen this game before? I recommend the Blumenfeld counter gambit. I'm going to play it exclusively for a long while right now because this is amazing. It's an open banco. Who doesn't like open lines? We like open positions. We like closed positions. We're going to talk about the closed Sicilian for the rest of the week. Thank you guys as always for watching. Welcome back. Have a great day. Peace. Boom.